Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. I woke up on the cold tile floor, my head pounding as if I'd just come back from somewhere far away. My skin was clammy, my breath shallow. The air smelled wrong, like damp concrete and something metallic. The mansion was silent, but a kind of unnatural silence, the kind that made your instincts scream at you to run. I didn't remember falling asleep. I didn't remember much of anything at first. Just flashes, men in suits, a red light flashing, something about containment. My fingers brushed against the floor, and I felt something strange on my skin. Fine grains of shattered glass. My eyes darted to a window. Its pane was fractured as if something had hit it hard. Something was wrong. I stood, steadying myself against the wall. The place looked abandoned, though that didn't make sense. This mansion wasn't just a home, it was a facility, a place where things were controlled. And yet, something had slipped. A soft creak echoed from somewhere deeper in the house. I turned sharply. "Hello?" My voice was hoarse. No answer. Then another noise, a shuffle, slow and deliberate, like someone dragging their feet. It came from down the hallway, where the shadows stretched too long in the dim emergency lighting. I took a step forward, and that's when I saw the first sign that my instincts were right. A body. A man in a white coat slumped against the far wall, motionless. His ID badge dangled from his pocket. Umbrella Corporation? That was when the memories started to come back in pieces. The underground lab, the security breach, the Red Queen, an artificial intelligence designed to keep everything in order. If this place was in lockdown, that meant something had gone terribly wrong. I stepped closer to the body, reaching down. His skin was pale. Too pale. A spill of deep red had dried on his collar, but his chest wasn't rising or falling. He should have smelled like the aftermath of an accident, but the air was too sterile, too empty. Then his hand twitched. I shot backward, my heart pounding. He shouldn't be moving. He couldn't be moving. The body lurched, the fingers grasping at the floor as if pulling itself forward. Its head lifted, and that's when I saw the eyes. Not human anymore. Clouded, empty, yet locked onto me like a predator sighting prey. The man made a sound, a low, unnatural groan. I had the sick realization that I wasn't alone. From the hallway came more movement. A second shape appeared. Then a third. Figures in torn suits and ruined lab coats, all moving in the same unnatural way, their eyes reflecting the dim emergency lights. I took a step back, then another. I didn't have a weapon. I didn't know what was happening. But I knew one thing. I needed to get out. I didn't wait to see what happened next. My body moved before my mind could catch up, my feet carrying me backward as the figures in the hallway dragged themselves closer. Their movements were stiff, unnatural, like puppets on tangled strings. The man in the lab coat let out a sound, something between a breath and a growl. His mouth hung slightly open, and his teeth— there was something wrong about them. The others behind him followed, their motions eerily synchronized. I turned and ran. The mansion's long corridors stretched before me, familiar but disorienting in the dim red glow of emergency lights. My footsteps echoed against the marble floors. I passed broken furniture, shattered glass, signs of struggle. Signs that something had already happened here. I needed to find a way out. A heavy door stood at the end of the hall. I grabbed the handle and yanked, locked. A sudden, sharp noise behind me, like a shoe scraping against the floor. I spun around. They were closer. The man in the lab coat had reached the hallway's entrance, his sluggish pace betrayed by the sheer inevitability of his advance. The others followed, some of them limping, others moving as though their bones didn't fit right anymore. I had to think fast. To my left, another doorway, slightly ajar. I pushed through, slamming it shut behind me. A dark room, lit only by a single flickering light overhead. It looked like an office, papers scattered across a wooden desk. A bookshelf covered one wall, a shattered picture frame on the floor. I moved to the window, thick glass, reinforced, no easy way out. The doorknob rattled. I turned, my breath caught in my throat. The thing outside pushed against the door, testing it. Its weight shifted forward, slow and insistent. Then came another sound, a groan, this time from the hallway answering the first. More of them were gathering. Trapped, my eyes scanned the room. I needed something, anything, to defend myself. The desk drawer. I yanked it open, papers spilling onto the floor. A small handgun. A standard security issue judging by the worn grip. I grabbed it, checked the chamber. Half a magazine. A sudden thud against the door. The wood creaked. No time to hesitate. I backed toward the bookshelf, trying to steady my breathing. My hands weren't shaking, which told me my body remembered things my mind hadn't caught up with yet. Training, experience. I didn't know how, but I knew what to do. Another impact. The door splintered slightly. I raised the gun. The first shape forced itself through the widening gap. Its face twisted in a way that no living thing should be. A second pushed in behind it. Their empty eyes locked onto me. I fired. The first shot hit center mass. The figure barely reacted. The second shot, higher. The thing's head snapped back and it collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut. I didn't wait for the others to react. I moved, fast, pushing past the fallen body and into the hall. They reached for me, hands grasping, mouths opening in slow, soundless hunger. I ran. Somewhere ahead, I knew there had to be a way out. A door, a passage, anything. I just had to survive long enough to find it. I didn't stop running. The air was thick, stale, carrying the scent of something that had gone horribly wrong. My pulse pounded in my ears as I turned a corner, my boots skidding slightly on the marble floor. The mansion was a maze, one I should have known better, but the fog in my memory kept me from piecing things together. What was I doing here before waking up? Who had locked the doors? Who had set the security measures? I pushed those questions aside. Right now, survival came first. A grand staircase loomed ahead, splitting the main hall in two. Massive chandeliers hung overhead, their usual warm glow replaced by the eerie flicker of backup lighting. The place looked abandoned, but I knew better now. I gripped the handgun tightly, glancing over my shoulder. The figures I'd left behind were still shuffling after me, slow but relentless. I needed to find an exit. The front doors, massive, wooden, reinforced, stood at the far end of the hall. I ran for them, my breath tight in my chest. I reached for the handle and locked. No. I rattled the handle, bracing a shoulder against the door. It didn't budge. I spotted a digital keypad to the right of the frame, its screen flashing an error message. Whatever security had been activated had locked this place down tight. A sound from the second floor. I spun around, gun raised. A figure stood at the top of the staircase, different from the others. Not sluggish, not mindless, watching. The dim red light barely outlined their silhouette, but I knew immediately they weren't like the creatures I had encountered so far. They moved too smoothly, too deliberately, and they were armed. I took a step back, gripping the gun tighter. The figure tilted its head as if assessing me. Then, without warning, they turned and disappeared down the hallway. I hesitated. Following someone in this situation was a gamble, but staying down here, trapped between locked doors and advancing threats, wasn't an option. I moved. Taking the stairs two at a time, I reached the second-floor landing, scanning for movement. The stranger was already disappearing around another corner, leading me deeper into the mansion. Who were they? And why had they left me a trail to follow? No time for doubt, I pressed on. The hallway stretched before me, lined with old portraits. Some of the faces seemed wrong, like they had been distorted, blurred by time or something else entirely. A door at the end of the corridor was slightly open. Light flickered from inside. I stepped in cautiously, gun raised. The room was a study. Large bookshelves lined the walls. A fireplace sat cold in the corner. A single desk, its surface littered with documents, stood in the center, and, standing beside it, waiting, was the stranger. They turned slowly to face me, and I got my first clear look. Black tactical gear, a holster at their side. A sharp gaze that held none of the emptiness I had seen in the others. A survivor. "You're not supposed to be awake," they said, their voice calm but firm. I kept my gun raised. "Neither are you." For a moment, we just stared at each other. Two people caught in the middle of something we didn't fully understand. Then, from the hallway behind me, a sound. Not slow footsteps this time. Something fast. Something coming straight for us. The stranger's eyes flicked past me, and they reached for their weapon. I turned just as the door burst open, and the real nightmare began. The door slammed open with a force that sent a gust of stale air rushing into the room. I spun around, raising my weapon. The stranger beside me had already drawn theirs, moving with the kind of precision that told me they weren't new to this. But whatever had just entered wasn't like the others. It moved fast. The shape lunged through the doorway, a blur of motion in the flickering light. It was human-shaped, but just barely. The skin was stretched too tightly over its frame, its limbs too long, its movements unnatural. It didn't shamble like the others. It charged. The stranger fired first, a precise shot straight to the chest. The thing barely reacted. I squeezed the trigger, aiming for the head. The impact sent it staggering back a step, but it didn't go down. Then it shrieked. A sound that sliced through the air like a knife, high-pitched and unnatural. My instincts screamed at me to move, and I did, just as the thing lunged again. I barely dodged, throwing myself to the side. The bookshelf behind me splintered as the creature crashed into it, sending a cloud of dust and paper into the air. The stranger didn't hesitate. They moved in close, a blade flashing in their hand. A clean, practiced strike across the throat, deep enough that any normal threat would have dropped instantly. But this wasn't normal. The thing twisted unnaturally, its body bending in ways it shouldn't be able to. It caught the stranger's wrist, gripping so tightly I could hear the fabric of their sleeve straining. For the first time, I saw something flicker across their expression. Not fear, calculation. Then they moved fast. Twisting their arm, they freed themselves just as I fired again, aiming higher. This time, the thing went down. It hit the floor, twitched once, then finally stopped moving. Silence. I exhaled, keeping my gun raised. What was that? The stranger nudged the thing with their boot, studying it. Not like the others, and definitely not supposed to be here. That wasn't an answer, but something in their tone told me they weren't in the mood to give one. The tension in my muscles hadn't eased. "You know what's going on here?" They hesitated. Then, instead of answering, they turned toward the desk and started rifling through the scattered documents. Not enough to fix it. Not enough to fix it. I glanced back at the body on the floor. The others had been slow, predictable, but this one? It had moved like something aware, something with intent. And the fact that the stranger wasn't surprised by it told me they knew more than they were letting on. I lowered my weapon slightly but didn't holster it. "Who are you?" They didn't look up. "I could ask you the same thing." I frowned. "I don't remember much." That got their attention. A brief flicker of interest in their expression. Amnesia? Something like that. I paused. "But I know my name, Alice." The stranger considered that for a moment before nodding slightly. "Rain." I took them in fully now. Black tactical gear, the way they carried themselves. Their confidence with a weapon. They weren't just some lost survivor. "You work for them, don't you?" I said. "Umbrella." They didn't deny it. Just gave a short, almost unreadable smile. "Not anymore." Before I could press further, a noise echoed from the hallway outside. Slow, rhythmic. The sound of something gathering. More of them. Rain cursed under their breath. "We need to move." I agreed. Whatever was happening here, whatever had turned this place into a waking nightmare, was only getting worse. And the only way out was through it. Rain moved first, leading the way out of the study. I followed, stepping over the fallen creature without looking down. Whatever that thing had been, I had a feeling it wasn't the worst we were going to face. The hallway outside had changed. More shadows stretched across the walls. More of those slow, dragging footsteps echoed from the corridors beyond. The air felt heavier, thick with something I couldn't name. Rain moved like they knew exactly where they were going. I kept pace, gripping my weapon tightly. "Where are we headed?" I asked. "The basement," Rain said, keeping their voice low. "There's an emergency exit below the mansion. If it's still operational, it'll get us out of here." That made sense. But something about the way they said it told me there was more to the story. I glanced at them. "You've done this before. Something like that. No hesitation. No elaboration." We turned a corner. Ahead, an old wooden door stood at the far end of the hall. It looked out of place among the mansion's polished surfaces. Rain reached for the handle, then froze. I caught it too. Movement, just at the edge of my vision. Not the slow, staggering shapes I had seen before. This was different. Faster. Rain reacted instantly, grabbing my arm and pulling me back as something rushed out of the darkness. It was on us before I could raise my weapon. A blur of movement. Claws, slashing through the air where my head had been a second ago. We hit the ground hard, rolling apart. I twisted, aiming at the thing that had ambushed us. It wasn't like the others. It was lean, hunched, its limbs stretched longer than they should have been. Its skin was pale, almost translucent in the dim light. And its eyes, black, empty pits that reflected nothing, locked onto me with a kind of awareness the others didn't have. Rain was already on their feet, firing. The creature dodged, the first shot, moving unnaturally fast. I fired too, aiming for center mass. My bullet hit. The thing staggered, but it didn't fall. Then it smiled. A slow, unnatural curl of its too wide mouth. My stomach twisted. It lunged again. I threw myself to the side, crashing into an old cabinet as its claws ripped through the wood where I had been. Splinters flew. Rain moved in, this time with a blade. A clean, precise slash across the creature's side. It let out a low, distorted sound, not pain, amusement. Then it moved again, too fast to track. I turned just in time to see it disappearing, climbing up the wall like a spider, vanishing into the darkness above. And then, silence. I pushed myself up, breathing hard. "What?" Rain grabbed my wrist. "Move." No argument, we ran. The wooden door at the end of the hall groaned as Rain shoved it open. Beyond it, stairs leading down. No turning back now. We descended into the depths of the mansion, the air growing colder with each step. The walls changed from polished stone to something older, more industrial. Pipes ran along the ceiling. The scent of damp metal filled my lungs. This place wasn't just a mansion. It was a facility. And I had a feeling we were only scratching the surface. At the bottom of the stairs, a metal security door stood half open, flickering emergency lights casting long shadows across the floor. I stepped through and stopped. The hallway beyond was coated in deep red, walls streaked with it, the floor wet with it. Not just a struggle, a massacre. Rain exhaled sharply. Guess we weren't the first ones down here. I swallowed hard, my grip tightening on my weapon. Whatever had done this, it was still here, and it was waiting. The silence was worse than the screams. I stepped forward carefully, my boots splashing in the dark liquid pooling on the floor. The walls were smeared with streaks, some of it still fresh, glistening under the flickering lights. Someone, or something, had torn through this place. Rain moved ahead, weapon raised, eyes scanning every shadow. The way they carried themselves told me they'd been in places like this before. Maybe not exactly like this, but close enough. "Stay sharp," they murmured, like I needed the reminder. We moved through the corridor slowly, stepping over torn uniforms, broken helmets. These weren't civilians. They were heavily armed Umbrella personnel. But whatever had taken them down had done it fast. I crouched near one of the bodies, my instincts kicking in. The wounds weren't from gunfire. Deep slashes, almost surgical in precision. Some of them were missing pieces, not eaten, just removed. Rain exhaled sharply. "We need to keep moving." I stood nodding. Whatever had done this was still nearby. We reached another door at the end of the hallway. Unlike the rest of the facility, this one looked reinforced. A thick metal barrier with a cracked Umbrella logo printed across it. Rain checked the controls. "Power's still active. We can get through." I kept my gun raised as they entered a code. The panel beeped, then flashed, "Access granted." With a deep mechanical groan, the door slid open. The room beyond was massive. Rows of glass chambers lined the walls, filled with something. I stepped closer, feeling a cold weight settle in my chest. Inside those tanks, things floated, some human-like, some not, mutations, experiments. Some were still moving. "This isn't just a lab," I muttered. "It's a holding facility." Rain scanned the room, and whatever they were holding, a sudden crash cut them off. One of the glass tanks shattered. I turned just in time to see something drop to the floor, a twisted, half-formed thing, its body twitching violently. Its eyes snapped open, black pits locking onto me. Then another tank cracked, then another. The entire room came to life. Rain grabbed my arm. "Run." We sprinted as glass exploded around us, the air filling with an inhuman chorus of screeches and growls. Shadows twisted in the broken tanks as things pulled themselves free, their movements erratic, unnatural. One dropped in front of us. Too fast, too close. It lunged, but I was faster. I fired, the shot punching through its skull. It crumpled instantly, but there were more behind it. Rain pulled a second weapon, firing in controlled bursts as we moved. "There's a security checkpoint ahead." I didn't question it. We ran, dodging past the horrors spilling from their glass prisons. Some crawled, some slithered, some didn't even have recognizable faces. The checkpoint came into view, a reinforced door half open beyond it. A dimly lit tunnel stretched into the distance. Our only way out. I reached it first, sliding under the gap. Rain followed, but something grabbed their leg. One of the creatures, a mess of limbs and exposed bone, its fingers like claws, held on tight. Rain twisted, slamming the butt of their gun into its head. It barely reacted. I didn't think, I just moved. I brought my boot down on its arm, hard. Something snapped, and the creature let out a sharp, distorted cry. Rain yanked free, rolling through the doorway. I slammed the emergency controls. The heavy metal door slammed shut, cutting off the screeching things behind us. For a moment, neither of us spoke, just the sound of our breathing. Then Rain exhaled a short, humorless laugh. "Hell of a night, huh?" I leaned back against the cold wall, forcing my heartbeat to slow. And deep in that tunnel ahead of us, something moved. The night wasn't over yet. The tunnel stretched ahead, swallowing what little light remained. The flickering overhead bulbs barely reached past a few feet before giving way to pure blackness. Rain stood beside me, reloading their weapon with quick, practiced movements. Their breathing had steadied, but I could tell they were still wired, just like I was. I glanced at the sealed door behind us, where muffled, inhuman sounds still scraped against the other side. No turning back now. "How far does this tunnel go?" I asked, keeping my voice low. Rain shook their head. "Long. Maybe a mile, maybe more. If the layout's the same as the last facility, They stopped, correcting themselves. As the last one of these, I was in. I didn't miss that slip. "You've been through this before." Rain didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, "Not exactly this, but close enough." I wanted to press further, but I didn't get the chance. Because ahead of us, something moved. A slow, deliberate shuffle, just at the edge of the darkness. I raised my gun. Rain did the same. The sound stopped. Silence. Then, all the lights cut out at once. Darkness swallowed everything. I went still, forcing myself to breathe slow and quiet. Beside me, I could barely make out Rain's silhouette, but I could feel them tensing. Then, from the blackness, a sound. Not footsteps. Something dragging, something breathing. It wasn't like the others, not a growl, not a hiss. This was slow, deep, like something massive inhaling long, careful breaths. And then I realized it wasn't just ahead of us. It was all around us. My grip tightened on my gun. I couldn't see a thing. Shooting blind wouldn't help if I didn't know where to aim. A whisper from Rain. "Move, now." I didn't hesitate. We stepped carefully, staying close to the wall. If this thing was waiting for us to panic, it wasn't going to get the chance. One step, then another. The breathing shifted. A low, almost human-like exhale, but wrong. Too big, too deep. Then movement. A rush of air. A shift in the darkness. Something was coming. I grabbed Rain's arm and ran. The floor trembled beneath us, a deep thud behind us, like something massive dropping to the ground. Then a chase. I couldn't see it, but I could hear it. The sound of something too large, too fast rushing after us. We ran full speed into the dark, hoping, praying, that there was an exit ahead. The tunnel curved. My shoulder hit the wall hard, but I didn't stop. Then, up ahead, a faint light. A doorway, slightly open, metal glinting in the distance. I pushed harder, Rain right beside me. And then, just as we reached the door, something lashed out. I didn't see it. I just felt the force of it. A gust of wind and pressure as something massive missed me by inches. Rain grabbed the door handle, yanking it open. We dove through, hitting the floor hard as the door slammed shut behind us. Silence. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my chest rising and falling too fast. On the other side of the door, the breathing stopped. Then slowly, the thing moved away. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to sit up. Rain was already on their feet, scanning the new room. It was another lab, but this one was different. The computers were still on. The monitors flickered with files and video feeds. One of them showed a map of the facility, and at the bottom, a blinking indicator labeled Escape Route. We had a way out, but we weren't the only ones in this room. At the far end of the lab, sitting calmly in a chair, was a man in a white coat. He smiled when he saw us. "I was wondering when you'd finally make it," he said. Rain raised their gun immediately. But the man just laughed. Now, he said smoothly. "You've made it this far. Don't you want to hear the truth before you go?" I didn't lower my weapon. But I did want answers. And something told me he was the only one left who had them. The man in the white coat leaned back in his chair, watching us with a calmness that felt wrong, like he wasn't afraid, like he knew something we didn't. Rain kept their gun trained on him. "Start talking," the man chuckled. "You've come all this way, fought through the failures, and you still don't see the bigger picture." I took a step closer. "Enlighten us." His smile widened. "Raccoon City was never meant to survive." The words hit like a punch to the gut. "This wasn't an accident," he continued. "It was a test, a controlled collapse, and you," he gestured at us, "you're the data." I felt my fingers tighten around my weapon. "You released this outbreak on purpose?" The man shrugged. "Everything needs a proving ground. The virus, the mutations, the adaptations Umbrella wanted to see who would survive, and here you are." Rain's grip on their gun didn't waver. "We should put a bullet in you right now." He didn't flinch. "You could, but then you'd never find the exit." I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to focus. "Where is it?" The man tapped the console beside him. A map flickered onto the screen, showing a hidden elevator at the far end of the facility. "This will take you to a tunnel leading out of the city, but it's a one-way trip. Once you use it, the lab goes into lockdown. No coming back." That sounded like a trap. I glanced at Rain. They nodded, barely perceptible, but I got the message. We take our chances. "Why are you helping us?" I asked. The man sighed, almost wistfully. "Because I want to see what you'll do next." I didn't like that answer, but we didn't have time to argue. Rain moved first, grabbing a keycard off the console. "Let's go." I backed toward the door, gun still on the scientist. "Don't try anything." He just smiled. "Good luck, Alice." The way he said my name sent a chill down my spine. We left him there, stepping into another corridor, the final stretch. The lights flickered as we ran. More alarms blared. The whole facility was falling apart. The elevator was just ahead, a massive, reinforced door with a keycard scanner. Rain swiped the card. "Nothing." I cursed. "Try again." Rain did, but then the floor shook violently. A roar echoed from the tunnels behind us, deep, hollow. I turned just in time to see the shadows shifting. It was back. That thing in the dark. And now it was charging straight for us. The scanner blinked green. Access granted. The elevator doors slid open. We sprinted inside, hitting the controls. The thing lunged, a blur of teeth and claws. The doors slammed shut. A massive impact rocked the elevator as we started moving. It hit us. I held my breath. Then, silence. The numbers on the panel counted up. Higher, higher, then light. The doors opened, revealing an underground exit tunnel. At the far end, I could see the faint glow of moonlight. We stepped out slowly. Fresh air. For the first time in 12 hours, I felt like I could breathe. Rain let out a quiet laugh. We made it. I wanted to believe that. But as we stepped toward the exit, something caught my eye. A small red light blinking on my wrist. I stared at it, my stomach twisting. It wasn't there before. Rain noticed too. Alice. A realization hit me like ice in my veins. We weren't just survivors. We were part of the experiment. The man's voice echoed in my head. I want to see what you'll do next. My fingers hovered over the blinking light. I had a feeling our nightmare wasn't over. And worse, I wasn't sure it ever would be. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.